All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kristen Smigelsky. I'm Research Project Manager for CELaRAI. Thank you so much for joining our second CELaRAI Talk series, where we explore how responsible AI supports early literacy, equity, and human-centered practice. So quick notes, today is a webinar session, so please feel free to share questions in the Q&A feature for a later portion of today's session. I'll share those with Atri so that he'll be able to answer them either during the presentation or afterwards. So please feel free to engage as much as possible. I'll share our website and LinkedIn in the chat so that you can stay connected with us after today's session. So I am delighted to hand it over to our director and PI, Dr. Christine Wong, to introduce our speaker today. Christine?
Thank you, Kristen. I'm not used to this webinar, so I don't see people. Well, welcome to our monthly talk series.
Zoom. Do you mind? No, come on.
Okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Atri Rudra, the Katherine Johnson Chair in AI, and the inaugural chair of the AI and the Society Department at the UB. Dr. Rudra co-edited the initial Mozilla Teaching Responsible Computing Playbook. His research spans structured linear algebra with applications to deep learning and the intersections of society and computing. His honors, the list is very long, so I will just highlight a few, include the 2022 SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellency in Teaching, ICML 2022 Outstanding Paper Run-Up, 2 ACM POTS, did I say it right? The acronym POTS, Test of Time Awards 2022 and 2025, 2 ACM POTS Best Paper Awards 2016 and 2012, and the NSF Career Award. So today's discussion is about AI in the Society Department at UB. Dr. Rudra will focus on how this new department is advancing research and education and the intersection of technology, ethics, and society. Together, we will explore what responsible AI looks like and how these ideas can inform innovation across fields, including K-12 education. So, Atri, welcome.
All right, thanks, Christine, and thanks, Christine and Chris, for inviting me. It's not the case that website makes everything real, but I do have a QR code of our department, which I guess since we have a website, we exist. I'll mention this later on as well. When Chris asked me if I could give this talk, I was like happy to do it, but I don't think I'll be able to make more than a 30-minute talk. So please ask questions. I'm happy to stop at any point of time and answer to the best of my abilities. Okay, so let's get started. So as you all know, AI is basically everything, everywhere, all at once these days. I'm going to kind of go through some examples of what I would call the good, the bad, and ugly of AI. Probably for this audience, most of this would be old stuff, but it kind of just helps me set up things for the talk. So there have been, I mean, it seems like every day there's a new article on AI, and like here are some that are more or less on the good side, right? So like people have been using it for like medical help to people. There have been some of these cases where apparently ChatGPT diagnosed patients where the doctors were not able to for a long time. And there's been other places where it's been used in legal nonprofits. I'll come clean and say I actually used ChatGPT to find these things because I figured ChatGPT would do a good job of finding good things about itself, I suppose. So, but there is also a lot of bad news, right? So there was this terrible news about actually now it's more than one teenager committing suicide after like talking with ChatGPT. These generative AI models are changing human relationships. Maybe the one that's probably more relevant to this audience, lots of concerns about using generative AI for cheating. And most of the times, this discussion tends to be like, students bad, right? But that's not quite it, right? It also kind of hurts students in the ways there have been the reports where now students have to prove that even though the answer looks like AI, it wasn't, they really didn't use AI. Right? And while I was making these slides, apparently now US military generals are using ChatGPT to make military decisions. So I'm sure that will grow very well. So things are bad, but I would also like to highlight what I'm calling the ugly side of these things. And these typically, depending on what you're looking at, maybe are more insidious or more hidden. But there have been news articles. For example, there was this article in Time where OpenAI used Kenyan workers to kind of basically go through horrific toxic material and kind of manually give feedback so that when we, say in the US, are using ChatGPT, we don't have to deal with really toxic response. Um, uh, the environmental impacts of AI has been getting a fair amount of attention, especially lately. I think yesterday on NPR, they had a piece on it. And so this is a serious issue because kind of both the power and the water usage for data centers that support these things are already having a lot of impact. And if people, if we as a society are not kind of think through this, things could get even worse. On the other side of these things, it's like reports about AI kind of suddenly not listening to humans, or if you take it to the extreme, like, AI will end the world. And so there is a lot of chatter about AI. And I wanted to kind of share maybe three viewpoints. One is this from AI, an article that's titled AI 2027. It's basically a bunch of folks saying that AI would be more intelligent than humans very soon, and they'll take over. Right? On the other hand of this is there's this article by Narayanan and Kapoor, but they make the case that AI can be a productivity tool, but we should treat it as a normal technology. The view that I am more I agree with more is somewhere, I think, between these two extremes, where the point is if you really want to understand AI, you have to understand within the context of society, right? So, I mean, you all work in the education space, you really understand this way better than I do. But if you're interested, this QR code leads you to this article. I think it makes the point very well. It also kind of, I'm sorry. I just realized I think I have my thing on manual setup. Okay.
We were seeing the slides correctly, I think. So that part is good.
All right.
Before. Now we're not seeing slides.
Oh, because I'm not shared. Of course, you're not seeing. Okay, sorry.
There we go.
But this also links to the other two articles that I mentioned in case you're interested to read about it. And so what this brings to is, and the thing that we are very intentional about in the AI and Society department is that this and is not incidental, right? It's there for a reason. And we really do care about thinking about AI and society. Okay, before I kind of give you an overview of the rest of the talk, I wanted to kind of clarify or warn you well in advance. I know this is being recorded, but I still reserve the right to take back most of the things I can say, mainly because things are changing. And so whatever I'm saying right now is what I think is the current setup, which might change tomorrow. And kind of along those lines, most of what I'll say is my personal opinion and not the official AI not the official department position because most of we don't have the full faculty in place yet. So we have not voted on many of these things that I'm saying we are thinking about or doing. So it's kind of related to that. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a relatively short talk. If you all don't, ask questions before I finish, I will be done within half an hour. Right? So I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, but also I'm more than happy to answer questions as we go along. And one warning that I guess I didn't put in, but I should mention, and I'll mention later on, that I'm definitely not an expert in AI in education. So I will apologize if you came here thinking I'll tell you something super insightful. You'll almost surely will be disappointed. So I apologize for that. Okay. Having said that, so here's how I plan for the rest 20 odd minutes of the talk. I'm going to give you a timeline of the AI in society. Chris actually had said that it would be nice to see how you got there. I then realized you probably don't care how I personally got here, but like how the department came about, I think is an interesting story. And I'll be upfront. I'm going to talk about things that I was more directly involved with. And so you're going to see some gaps like when I go through the timeline. Then I go over the mission and vision of AIS. This I feel more confident about, but again, the faculty has not officially approved these either. But we have been using this to kind of recruit people and stuff. So I feel pretty good about the mission and vision. And it turns out whenever I'm talking about the department, most of the questions that I get fall under the category of what the department is not about. So I'll be upfront about those things as well. Then for something that might be more of interest to this audience, we're going to talk about what we're calling the AI plus X degree program. So 7 of these actually have already been approved. So kind of quickly walk you through how this is structured. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how, again, personally, currently, I think AIS fits in this AI and education space. It will be completely unscientific, not grounded in any education theory. So I apologize for my very hacky presentation of the AI and education space in advance. Okay, so let's talk about timeline. So sort of got involved with this. So from right about August 23 to May 24, I was part of this task force, SUNY Strive. I forget what the acronym for was, but it's basically on AI. And the idea was to come up with a plan for SUNY in general. I co-chaired what was the Society and AI Working Group. I believe the official name might have been slightly different. But we spent basically a year talking to a bunch of folks across SUNY. There were folks within CSE, but folks outside within humanities, artists. It was actually a lot of fun talking with folks about how to do things. But as is typically happens or at least in my, sorry, I shouldn't say typically in general, but at least in my experience in kind of panels or working groups in academia, we tend to be like small steps, right? So we were like, oh, we should have, some setup for fellowships for students. Maybe we should do some internships. And the grandest thing that we got to was, oh, maybe we could think about some sort of centers. And all of this, we were working towards a report that was due in mid of April. And then we had a meeting with the conveners, was Shadi Shandvik, who's, I think, the head of research at SUNY, Venu, and Andy Singer, who's the dean at Stony Brook for engineering. And so we went to this, we were like, okay, here's what we're thinking. Here's our whatever 10-point thing. And they're like, yeah, no, this is not ambitious enough. We want you to think more ambitiously. I was like, okay. It's like, all right, fine. You want us to be ambitious. So I actually went through my emails and I was able to pinpoint the actual email where we sent So as the thing says, it's a complete 180 in our ambitions of what we're looking for. So you might recognize some of the names in the to list. And we were like, so Jason were like, oh, actually, yeah, we have to be more ambitious and kind of, go beyond just centers. And then everyone in the working group was like, okay, fine, you want us to be ambitious. We'll just propose that every school in SUNY should have a department of AI and society. Thinking, again, going back to my usual experience, we send this out, it goes out to the ether, it dies, nothing happens, we just go back to our work. But then there's an announcement comes from the governor, and what do you know? There's this line saying new departments of AI and society at SUNY places. And so just to point out, this is within a month of us doing a 180 degrees. And to be honest, at this point, Jason and I were both slightly scared. We were like, we are leading this. They're probably, each of our schools are going to come to us and ask us to lead this thing. So I did what a good academic does, which is just stop asking any questions after this. And so this happened, the announcement comes from the governor and then crickets. Jason and I have not heard anything. The summer's over. We're finally like, maybe we dodged the bullet. Maybe they're not going to come across us. Of course, you know how it ends, so it's not as suspenseful as it could be if you didn't know my current position. But then suddenly in October, there's like, oh, here's a call for proposals for department centers. And okay. So this is moving, but I'm still kind of doing my whole dance of, I'm not going to ask too many questions. I'll just keep quiet and do my stuff. Then in January, I got asked to be on, there was this committee kind of working towards these curriculum things. It was led by Robert Adelman from CAS and Luke Zarek from CES. And Jeff Good was playing a big role. Jeff will come back into the picture again. And then sometime in late January, I get email from Kemper, my dean. He's like, oh, I'd like to meet with you about AI. So I was like, okay. And so then I get offered a position. And I started as faculty director. And the reason why I was not chair was because the department was not even approved. So they couldn't call me chair because the department didn't exist. So we had to go through the process of getting approval. Kind of the big thing was in April, the faculty senate approved the creation of AIS. I hadn't seen like kind of deans be so nervous before a meeting before this, but it all went well. So it was fine. So then in May, so these AI plus X degree proposals, which is what this curriculum committee was working on, was submitted to SUNY. And it got approved in just 2 weeks. For folks who are not familiar with the SUNY system, this is very, very unusual. You at least think of months, if not semesters, to get things done. Also, the department formally got approved. So the AIS department has been in existence formally for less than a year now, so we're still very young. In May, the faculty size grew by 100% because Jeff joined as the associate chair. Oh, by the way, sorry, I should mention, like, once SUNY approved the proposal, it went to state to get approved, right? So, but in July, the state education department approves these 7 proposals. This is just 2.5 months, and I have these many exclamation points for those of you not familiar with the system. Before this, I mean, if someone had told me this would get approved in a month, in a year, I would be like, what are you smoking, right? This is completely unexpected. So then in September 25, the department again grew by another 100%. Super happy to have been able to recruit Joy Ming, who's currently a postdoc at Cornell. She'll start in spring. Her research is human-computer interaction. Research area is human-computer interaction. Specifically, she focuses on home care workers. And then Maria Rodriguez, who actually joined us from CSE, who works in human services and kind of child services is kind of one of her focus areas. Spring back one more month, we now law of diminishing numbers, I guess. So we only grew by 50%. So Kenny Joseph joined the department internally via CSE, and Sarah joined us from math. And so, but this is it. This is the department, like me and these 5 folks. Though again, officially, Jeff, Maria, and me are full-time, and Kenny is on sabbatical this semester, and Sarah is wrapping up math stuff. But starting spring 26, this is what AIS will look like. All right, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the mission and vision of AIS. But if there are any, or maybe I'll wait for a question after the mission and vision. Okay. So the vision of AIS is fairly simple. Well, not simple, it's short. So the vision is to create a future world where AI systems are built by society and for society. Right? In particular, the way AI systems are built currently is actually essentially neither of these two. Maybe for society work sometimes, but definitely the AI systems being built by companies are built for profit, which makes sense. I mean, companies are here to make profit. But we want to kind of think about how do you build these AI systems where you, from day one, you're starting to build by society and for society. I also have the mission statement. I realize it's a lot of words, so I'll kind of walk through kind of the 4 parts of this. So the first one is to conduct transdisciplinary research, and I'll be very upfront. A year before, if you had told me what transdisciplinary research was, I probably would not have known. But so the idea here is not just to combine 2 different areas, but combine them in a way so that you create something new that doesn't exist. And so we believe to do that, you have to kind of work across what are traditionally siloed disciplines, right? So like you want to have people from AI, but also more importantly, people from the arts, the humanities, and all the social sciences, basically the disciplines that have studied society for centuries. AI typically sits within computing, and I have no compunction in saying that because I'm a computer scientist, after all, we have no clue how society works, right? We are never trained for it. And as students, and so we don't have the skills to do it. So it is a necessity that you have to involve folks who understand society better. The second line is kind of shaping the next generation of citizens who will contribute to this vision. And so specifically, this is where education fits in pretty easily, though of course, education is also relevant in the other parts. But in the short term, thinking about like how do we educate students, but we are also like how do we educate the community about what AI means. More specifically, I mean, in some sense, it is simple. Like there are ways you can understand at a very high level how these systems work, right? But in popular media, it's portrayed as something like this real mysterious thing that it's hard to kind of wrap your head around. I mean, there's some truth to that, like depending on the level that you want to think about. But like if you want to know, for example, what is the high level math, it is not that complicated. The thing that we are very intentional about is we want to respectfully and meaningfully engage the community. So we said we want AI systems by society and for society, and you can't do that without engaging the community. And so for folks who are more kind of oriented towards traditional AI stuff, here's one problem that I tell people that I think kind of captures the kind of systems we want to build, but is kind of related to community engagement. So let's say you have decided that a community kind of wants a certain AI system. Now, I want to be very clear that the answer is not always it, right? And so that's kind of the 4th bullet, which says, like, if we are kind of thinking about a project, we should not be going and thinking AI is going to be the solution, because it might not. But let's say you have kind of, worked with the community and decided that indeed there's this particular kind of AI system that the community A wants and B would be helpful to the community. Then the kind of sort of more technical or so not more traditional CSE type question is that I kind of propose is how would you get the community members to decide, say, what the loss function is during the training of your model, right? I don't know how we're going to, no one knows how to do it. But I think that to me kind of sort of captures sort of the things that we want to work on. Okay. Are there any questions for me at this point of time?
I can ask a question. I know, historically, like in the early history of AI, there was a lot of consideration about what AI might mean to society, mostly from computer scientists, but also, psychologists and others who were involved in the early AI movement. And, here we are today with these sort of breakthrough technologies, but it also seems like the computer scientists today are maybe a little bit less, broadly oriented towards different disciplinary approaches to what they're doing. Can you talk a little bit about like what it means to have this be a separate department from computer science? Like, what do you think, even beyond, University of Buffalo, like what do you think about when you think about the relationship between these types of scholars and the computer scientists?
Thanks, Chris. That's a great question. So yeah, you're right. Again, I have no compunction in saying this. Computer scientists just don't know, like kind of the things about society. And I think one of the things that's really missing about computer scientists is humility in what they do. And to be clear, it is indeed a function of how computer science is taught, right? It is always like computing can solve every problem that you want. Like that's how we recruit students to computer science, right? So we shouldn't be surprised if they come in thinking like, oh, that's how it should be, right? But yeah, kind of going back to your question, right? So these problems cannot be solved without talking with folks from outside the discipline. But it is sort of hard to do this level of work within computer science. Now, again, I'm not saying, I mean, I have colleagues who already do this kind of work, like this institute itself is, and at the NSF AI Institute is already working. So there are people who are working on it, but it is hard to kind of do this at a departmental level because, again, like people are really focused on kind of like the traditional notions of CS, which I love, right? I do theoretical computer science. That's my kind of happy place. So it's like completely get it. But it is really hard to kind of have space where, people from humanities, arts and science and computing come together and kind of talk at an equal footing. And one of the things that I think you can, and of course there are centers that do this, right? So we are not the kind of first kind of group of people who are like, oh, this is important, we should work on this together. And again, like, like your organizations does this at one level and so on and so forth. But it is still not a department. And as far as we know, there doesn't exist any such department, definitely not in the US, right? And I think one place where it shows up very acutely is tenure and promotion of faculty members, right? Because it's very, very hard for someone who's working in this area to get tenure within CSE, and not that it can't be done, or within the other things, right? Because you really are looking for what I call bridge scholars, right? So you have one foot in AI or some computing and the other foot in a thing. And then like people who do this have to kind of contort their work to kind of fit into kind of the home discipline. And so one of the things that we have done, so I did say, we have not decided on much like the faculty. The one thing that we have, Jeff and I have put our time together is kind of coming up with this new tenure and promotion guidelines, where we really like, no, you actually need to do both, right? No, you actually, for example, and again, it is still not official because faculty members still have to vote, but we'll get that done early in the spring semester. But we are like, if you're not engaging with the community, then you're not going to get tenure in this department because you can't do the kind of work that you want to do with community engagement. Whereas if you're doing community engagement work and like engineering, it's counted as service, right? Which is kind of like not really the, like, it doesn't get the kind of attention that it really deserves in this kind of work. So I think, like, from the point of view of faculty member and research, I think this is kind of, there's the thing that's most exciting. And this is something that, so we have interviewed a bunch of folks now over Zoom and on site, like without fail, every single one of them is like, we're super excited that this space exists, right? Now, of course, they're interviewing, so they're going to say nice things about us. But I think even, modulo that, there's a lot of. So I think that is kind of like, I think this support system of having a department, I think, is super crucial for doing this work. And so we are very excited about that possibility. Sorry, this was very long of an answer, but hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
Very much appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. So, I'm going to spend one slide on what AIS is not, and maybe this is, it's not going to be an exhaustive list, but like some of the things that I've kind of had to answer these questions whenever I'm giving a talk like this. So sorry, there's a question from the audience. How is AI in society different from computational folks building applications that are useful to society? Well, so as is always the answer to the questions like this, it's both yes and, or yes and no. So at a very high level, maybe not. Actually, you know what? If I'll hold off answering this question because I think this is like point number 2 on my next slide. So, first thing about what AIS is not, it is not the AI department, which seems to be the #1 confusion especially among students and prospective students and parents. It's like, if you want to build kind of traditional AI like in CSE, CSE is still the place to do this, right? So if you're really interested in kind of the math and kind of the computing aspects of it, like CSE is still the place to do this. And the second thing that AI, and again, when I say not, this doesn't mean that we're never going to do these things. But when I say it's not, what I mean to say is that's not our primary focus. So going back to the question about computational folks applying, and again, there are exceptions, but at least on average, those projects looks like, okay, so you take this AI system that exists and then kind of apply it to something to solve a problem that society needs, right? And again, this is not always the case. There are people on this call who are not doing this, and so just want to clarify that. But typically, it seems like in these cases, you're either already decided what your tool is going to be. So you've already decided they're going to use AI, for example. And then, but AI might not be needed, right? And so, and also kind of in some sense, if you're thinking of what's going into the solution, the movement is more from AI into X, right? So it's typically you're using and taking up a AI system that has already been developed, and then maybe you will fine tune it or whatever. But you're not going to build new kinds of AI systems, right? And so what we're really interested in AIS is, and again, like these are great things to do. Faculty members will do it, but our focus is how can you take concepts from X and build new kinds of AI systems that don't exist? Like, to be blunt, as a computer scientist, that is the more interesting question to me. Like the fact that you can use existing AI systems to solve societal problems as a computer scientist is not super interesting to me. Like, I mean, it's super important, and people are doing it, and people should do it. But what we're really interested in is, in some sense, the other direction, right? So how do you start from the problem itself, then decide whether AI is needed, and then decide, like, can some existing AI system work? And if not, if we need to build new kinds of AI systems, what would that look like? So hopefully that sort of answered the audience question. And and again, this doesn't have to be the case for every folks using AI in societal applications. We are not that interested in AI systems that are not community centered. So I just want to kind of, again, you can build great AI systems that have great societal impacts, but maybe you're thinking of society as individuals more than as a community, right? So, and again, all of these are just, I just want to point out that even though I said AIS is not any of these three things, it doesn't mean that we don't think this is important. It doesn't mean that we might not be involved in these things. It's just that we are purposefully kind of not focusing on these things. So maybe I'll finally get to something that more folks on this call would be interested in. So let me walk you through this AI plus X degree programs. For those of you familiar with CS plus X programs, which I think it came out of UIUC, it's kind of a, like, at a very high level, that's where things started. But the structure looks different than at least the CS plus X degrees that I'm aware of. So we actually have, as I had mentioned, degrees that were already approved. There are 7 degrees. I'm not going to read through all of these, but for example, AI and policy analysis 1 degrees, and the department within the parenthesis is the X department. And so the way these degrees have been set up, these degrees actually live in the X department. So AI and policy analysis is a degree program in political science. I don't know what happened, but okay. But there's 7 of these that are approved. Let me kind of walk you through the structure of how this looks, mainly to point out how the AIS department is involved. So each of these AI degree, irrespective of X, has to have some society core courses, has to have some tech core courses. I'm going to come back to these in a bit, but then the AI plus X degree will also have some X core courses, right? So for political science, like whatever is, unfortunately don't remember the number, but whatever is like foundational course in political science, students will take. Then building on these, there would be some what we call X plus AI integrated courses. So these are courses taught by subject matter experts in X on how to use AI in kind of the field of study. And to cap it all, there is a capstone course. So anything that's colored blue, so the core course, society core, tech core, and the capstone course is what AI in society is responsible for. Everything else is what the X department is responsible for. So I wanted to mention a couple of things. We have been very intentional to make sure that the tech courses are as widely available as possible. And so in particular, for example, if you wanted to do, like a traditional AI course in CSE, you'll have to take some programming course in CSE, you have to take calculus, you'll have to take linear algebra, to take probability, right? And like, for example, at least at UB, to take the linear algebra course, you have to take 2 calculus courses, right? So there's a lot of requirements in there, which again, I understand and for computer scientists makes a lot of sense, but we wanted to be very intentional about not excluding students who, for whatever reason, don't want to take Math 140. And so we intentionally kind of abstracted or extracted out, like, kind of like, here are the concepts in probability and statistics and the concepts in linear algebra that you need to kind of have some understanding and like kind of have that be its kind of standalone course. And similarly, and if folks are interested, I can talk in more details. There's also kind of various tracks within the tech core depending on how calculus ready and how programming ready students are. And the society core courses are things like, AI and ethics. There's a course that I really like, technical disruption and diffusion, where the idea is to point out to students that AI is not the first technology that's disrupting the world, right? Writing was, ships were, right? And locomotives were. And so kind of showing the history of how throughout time, we have had technologies come in and disrupt the world, because I think it's useful for students to have the correct kind of benchmark in mind about what has happened before. The capstone course is, well, we haven't offered it, but we still have a couple of years before we do that. But the idea is to kind of build these groups where there's students from these different axes, right? So, as you said, if you want to build the systems, you need people with different kind of disciplinary backgrounds. So this is our way of ensuring that the students kind of talk to students outside of their disciplines. And the idea here is we want to kind of, the students that we want to train are what we call bridge people. I'd already mentioned this, but I mean, building bridges is important, but that's not what we're talking about. What we are looking at is more of what we call a modern polymath. So I don't know how much time we have. We have some time. So since I guess I am a teacher, can't let you all go without giving you all a quiz. So I'm curious how many of you recognize all 5 of these polymaths? Okay. All right, I guess I can't see my quote unquote students, so hard to tell who did get it or not. But in case you did not hear, so Maya Angelou, Marie Curie, Ada Lovelace, Ben Franklin, and Leonardo da Vinci. Typically, people know these 2, maybe not all of the other 3 on the left, but all of them are phenomenal polymaths of their times. And so the claim is not that students who take this AI plus X courses would be the next Benjamin Franklin or Ada Lovelace or Marie Curie or Maya Angelou. Some of them might, but just by numbers, it's not going to happen even in one course, right? So what we are really saying is, okay, at least what we want are you're polymath in the sense that you at least have a decent understanding of AI and this other discipline X, right? And maybe another way to say this is, at least when I was going through undergrad, you had to be super specialized, right? So you do computer science and then, maybe cybersecurity and then and so on and so forth. But I think going forward, my personal belief, at least from the point of view of computing, is you can't just be kind of specializing in computing and then be able to do the great things that you want to do in society. You have to have this broader knowledge of other areas. Okay, so this is one question that also comes up is especially from students, they're like, yeah, fine, sounds good, but I really just want to do AI. What should I do? Well, I think first I said, well, you should probably reevaluate the fact you just want to do AI, but okay, if that is what you want to do, these courses are not tied to the AI. They're not restricted to AI plus X majors. Most of these courses, the core courses actually have very few prereqs or no prereqs for most of them, because we wanted folks to kind of be able to take it. So even if someone's just interested in AI, they could take the AI and society course, right? Or the AI and social structures course, or AI and policy course, just to kind of get them a more rounded thing. And as I mentioned this before, kind of quote unquote, the traditional AI courses, like the way these things have been taught, will still remain within CEC. Okay. So I want to kind of end with some thoughts on talking about AIS and more generally this AI in education space, which I know is everyone on this call is super interested in. As I'd mentioned, A, this is my personal thing. B, I'm not an education, I won't even call expert, right? I don't know this area well. So I'm going to come up with a taxonomy, which is a total hacky one. I'm just trying to kind of organize my thoughts in a way that sort of made sense, right? And again, I reserve the full right to come back in a week and said, my faculty said, you're stupid. This is all wrong. We need to change everything. And that is still very much on the cards. So one area that I think in my head is by using AI in education. And Here, I mean, it could either be for individual settings, how to kind of help individual students, or even systematic things like how do we look at how things are structured? Can you improve them? And of course, CELaRAI is a prime example of this. You all are doing awesome work in this area. So is the National AI Institute for Exceptional Education. There's work like this in DE. Well, there's this whole graduate school of education. Like, I mean, you all are the experts. You kind of do this work day in and day out. So that's kind of one category. Again, I should mention, I'm mentioning three categories. In my head, they're sort of distinct, but under no circumstances should you think that they're disjointed. They clearly are not. There's movement between these two and so forth. The second is educating folks about AI. So I talked a bunch about this in the AI plus X degrees. And the third one is kind of co-design and development of AI with learners and educators. And again, like the stuff that's happening in the settings is being co-developed and learned. But here, what I'm thinking more about is going back to the thing of we talk with educators and learners, and what does that tell us about building like kinds of AI systems that don't exist? Like even technically, like do we need I personally believe transformers are not the answers, right? So I guess one way to answer another question, the earlier question about how things are different, is if you are using transformers to solve certain things, in my mind, you're not really building new systems, right? And there are lots of these kind of alternate architectures that have been proposed. So in my head, when I'm talking about this kind of new things, I'm really looking forward to like even new architectures, like can we move beyond transformers and kind of build these systems. So again, this, as I said, might change. We, of course, our AIS is involved in the second thing. I mean, that was the mandate from the provost in the AI plus X degrees. So we're definitely doing that. We are also definitely interested in the third one and open to it. And I didn't mention the first one mainly because, to be blunt, I don't think we have the expertise to do it. We are, of course, more than happy to talk with you all to kind of do more of that. But we do not, for example, see us being leaders in any sense whatsoever in kind of this first category. Okay, so I'll just conclude with some things that are on the horizon, like this could be something from few months to a few years. So there are more AI plus X undergrad degrees under consideration. We are really excited about degrees where X doesn't sit in one department, but is split across departments. Like one of the things we had thought about would be need to have is say an AI and creativity degree, right, where it's kind of arts and all those things. I know the CAS Dean is really interested in an AI and design thing, for example. Again, by the way, none of these are final. These are just kind of things that are being talked about. So please don't go out and tell someone that Atri said that there's going to be AI and design things, because I don't know. I believe the committee was formed either last week or the week before. We're going to do a similar thing at the master's level as well. And we are also going to the department will have its own master's and PhD degrees as well. That's over the next year or so. As I mentioned, we are definitely very much invested in doing meaningful and intentional community engagement work, but we need faculty members to do it. So again, starting in spring, we're gonna do that. We're hoping to recruit a staff member who will kind of help us with the logistics as well going forward. And yeah, I mean, we are hiring so far. All the faculty members that we hired are tenure track faculty members. So I'm really excited about kind of the directions of research that they are going to take to go forward. And that is all that I had.
Thank you so much. This is very interesting. Look at the three category. I usually talk about the first two category of thinking about AI and education. The third category is almost like a way to develop AI tool for learners, educators. Like at our center, we just did the national survey to understand the teachers' needs. And we're getting into the phase of undertaking some co-design with teachers, not just about they as an informant. We're going to work with them. We have experts on our AI team. But at the same time, we really want to see how this look like. And we also involve children in the co-design, right? Chris right now is doing laddering interview, try to understand children's preference in terms of the interface would be like, how can we make it engaging to kids? The same thing about educating about AI. The co-design and the development of AI can be really great learning by doing kind of opportunity for learners. So it's very interesting to see how you frame this. I do want to pitch a talk actually upcoming in December 8th. We just came out. Will be co-sponsored by Chris, the Institute of Learning Sciences, which I'm part of it. Also co-sponsored by my own research lab. We call it Playful AI Learning and Design. So this person, Jason Yip, is our speaker from University of Washington. And so he has been running the kids team for over a decade now. So basically he's working with youth age as young as 6 or 7 up to teens, work with them to understand their perception about technology, also involve them in design different kind of technology. So we are really hoping you will join us to see that how the third category and connected with both the category 1 education, AI in education, as well as educating about AI.
No, thanks.
Right.
That sounds great. Yeah. I do think there's and I'll be honest here, the reason why we are not focusing on one is y'all are already doing so much work, right? It's like we are also want to make sure that we are we want to be the last thing we want to do is go and say, oh, we know how to do these things, because well, we don't, right? And so but we are definitely Christine, you're right, like there is, I think, a lot of opportunity for collaboration and kind of, and so it'll I forget if I mentioned this to both you and Chris. You and Chris are on our list of people that we're going to invite to talk with the department next spring. So fair warning, we are going to cover that. But now we are very excited about this. There's a lot of potential here, but we are definitely not experts in education. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's a lot of synergy there. I want to make sure we, before we get into our discussion, I want to make sure the audience has opportunity and time to ask questions. So the question you should be posted in the Q&A section. I could not see the chat. You can also write in the chat window, I guess. But Q&A probably is the best. Everybody could see it.
Yeah, I think last I checked, there was only one question that we talked about. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any other questions that people might have.
I mean, one thing I'll sort of following on the sort of curricular design, when I think about how other universities are thinking about studying AI in society, there are places that have, a focus on infusing ethics into AI development. There are places that use the lens of science and technology studies, or sociology of science and technology as ways to kind of study the impact of these technologies on society. But the idea that there should be some design mindset in the program is pretty unique. And if there's more you could say about what that would look like, for instance, with a AI and X major in political science or something else, like is there a vision for how people will be influencing AI? Is it more about thinking about policies and deployment? Is it about creating new technologies? Is it about particular kinds of partnerships or different kinds of social configurations? Any sort of thoughts on that?
I think the answer is sort of yes to all of those, but that's non-answer. So let me try to give a slightly more informative answer, which is I think at least these initial AI plus X, and this of course can change as they kind of run these programs. Like the initial ones that went out are mostly positioned as AI is going to influence jobs in X. So let's prepare our students for that, right? So at least the initial things that went in were all in that category. So kind of the level of how much of this core designing thing will come in. Currently, the only place where it will definitely be there is in the capstone, right? So that's the intentional part. But whether that happens in other years or not is not so clear. It again depends on things. The place where I think there will be, again, I said think because the AI's faculty will decide it. But next spring, we are going to be kind of developing our own master's and PhD program. And there, for example, I can totally see us having like community engaged project work throughout, right? Because it doesn't make sense to kind of do it at the end. So we are very much kind of, so we kind of have to start thinking like we've been having discussions, but again, the thing with the current thing is it's like if we did all we wanted to do, Maria is the only kind of non-chair, associate chair, like she would be in all the committees doing a whole lot of work, not fair on her at all. So that's why we were kind of waiting. But some of the ideas, I mean, I could, again, my personal things, but maybe I can just mention some of the ideas we've talked about and would be very happy to take any feedback. So one of the things that we'll have to kind of figure out, definitely for PhD and also masters, is what kind of background students should have to kind of get into these programs. And I don't think we can have one set, right? It's not like a CS program where like you have to take, programming one, data structures, so on and so forth. So we might, so one of the things, okay, sorry, I'm reading Infoma's question. I'll get back to that after I finish Chris's question. So I do think there might be like some sort of, at least from the point of view of background, like tracks, like you could have students that are maybe more on the traditional AI side, more on the society side, and then they come in like, and then kind of get the exposure to kind of both sides. Again, none of these is said, but another thing we have been kind of talked about is in PhD program, maybe everyone has two advisors, right? One on the AI side, one on the society side, is kind of forcing things to happen together. So yeah, I think the only thing I know for sure is we want to do all of these, just have not kind of had the faculty together to kind of hammer out details. But we will definitely be reaching out back to you all to kind of get feedback as we move along. Did that answer your question, Chris?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I realize I'm asking. I know curricular decisions are a bit off, so at some level,
it's not as off.
How are people thinking about it?
Yeah. Again, I need to be careful on what I say, things that are being recorded, but we are really hopeful that we'll get a similar expedited approval process for these master's programs that did for undergrads. And so if things go well, we could have things in place by fall 26. So it's not that far off.
Yeah.
And so all this means is spring is going to be pretty busy for us. All right, so Ifama's question is, based on your definition of the focus of AI, will it be true to say that there is a strong need for foundational computer scientists who understand how to develop innovative AI to answer? Yes, absolutely. I think anyone who's kind of in this space needs to understand how AI systems work, right? And so again, I want to kind of reiterate this point, right? The fact that we're creating these degrees doesn't mean that students who are in CS degrees cannot take some of these courses and be part of it. And like the idea is to keep this as open as possible. We are also kind of thinking about like these capstone courses. Can you have like a CA student come and take it, maybe not as a capstone, but kind of participate in it in a way. So those are all things that like we're thinking about, okay, can we also then have these projects where they're both grad students and undergrads working together, right? But Informa, like the short answer is yes. I do think there is a need for people who understand like the traditional AI, math, and things really well, but then can also talk with people who are not computer scientists, right? And it's like, I mean, Informa knows this well, like a lot of you know this well. Like, I mean, the hard part about doing transdisciplinary research is figuring out the language, like just being able to talk to folks who are not in your area. Like I have this story about, so I've been kind of talking with folks from social work. So we actually started, this is one of those lucky things that we actually got the grant before we started the work, which generally almost never happens. And so we were like, we actually have to work with that. And so I still remember like it's talking with Maria and Melanie Sage, like I think it was like half a year when I suddenly realized when I'm saying theory and they are saying theory, they are not the same theories, right? It's completely different things, right? So it takes a while to kind of get kind of set up the language so that people understand. Now, one of the things that we would really like to do, don't know, to be honest, don't have any concrete ideas, is but the hope in the AIS department is can we speed up these things, right? So when people are coming into the department, it's not taking them a year to kind of understand to how to talk to people, which is why our focus is really on bridge folks, so people who can kind of already understand the language on both sides. And so going back to maybe a kind of implicit question in Informa's thing is, so when I'm thinking of what kind of projects AIS would be involved, it's not just faculty members from our department. An ideal thing would be you have an AIS faculty member who's kind of the bridge person, but there's someone from computer science who kind of understands like the math side, like how to build these models, and then someone from the society side of the domain, like, and then kind of the AIS faculty member is literally a bridge so that, they can talk to kind of both sides so that you can at least get started sooner, right? Ultimately, you would hope that the society folks and the computer science folks can start to talk to each other. But the hope really is kind of AIS faculty members can be that catalyst and kind of get the conversations going.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think that's it for our questions in the chat, but feel free to reach out to us. We can always answer your questions at a later point. But I just want to thank you so much, Atri, for everything that you brought to this conversation today. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for everybody that tuned in to join and contribute to today's session. We hope this conversation sparked some ideas about how AI and society work can inform responsible, human-centered practice across our community. Our CELaRAI Talk series runs every second Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll share upcoming sessions on email and LinkedIn, and also our website. We have a new page coming soon, so please follow and invite your colleagues. For more information, you can check out the chat I put in our website and contact. We're earlyliteracyai.org, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. We're almost to 1,000 followers. That should happen in the next couple days. So feel free to like us and help us reach that goal. So thank you so much. We're so close. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Atri, and have a great rest of your day, everybody. We look forward to seeing you at our next CELaRAI Talk. So have a great weekend.
Thanks all. Bye.